All right, let's talk a little bit about the elongated skull people. So get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Yeah, even before the Nazca mummies came on the scene, really we had UFO disclosure, hard evidence of the existence of non-humans on Earth in the form of the elongated skull people of Paracas. Now, to be sure, some of the people, some of the specimens recovered that have elongated skulls were, they practiced skull binding that artificially elongated their skulls. And this wasn't just a practice in the Paracas region, as I've made videos about before. This was a global practice. They were doing it in Africa. They were doing it in France. They were doing it all over back in the day. And, you know, did they arrive at that very specific and strange practice independently of each other? Maybe. But, you know, maybe Occam's razor would suggest that it derived from a common origin. Maybe there were elongated skull beings, and we will see that there are elongated skull beings. And maybe they had a global presence like the Nazca mummy beings seem to have had. And maybe they encouraged the peoples of the region to look like them, or the peoples of the region wanted to look like them to have their abilities. You know, we don't know what the deal was, but we do know that people around the world were practicing this very specific practice. So let's get back to what are the differences between the elongated skull beings, the genuine beings, and the people who practice skull binding. Well, Brian Forster, of course, has done a lot of research on the Paracas skull beings and skull binding in general, and he is taking us through some of that research. He talks about some of the researchers besides himself who have investigated these specimens and what they have come up with and what the differences are between skull binding and the naturally elongated skull people.
And this work was done by Dr. Michael Alday, who is an American physician, Dr. Malcolm Warren, who is an American chiropractor, and Rick Woodward, who is a physical anthropologist. Now, this is what we call cranial deformation. You can tell the volume of the skull is that of a normal human, and the forehead and the back of the skull have been flattened. So this is what cranial deformation on the coast of Peru looks like. This, on the other hand, is what we call a natural Paracas skull. You can see the volume is greater than the previous skull I showed you, and the whole shape is much more complex than simple cranial deformation. Their foramen magnum, as you can see here, is at the back of the skull. So that is a genetic trait. You cannot change the position of the foramen magnum simply by binding a skull, because trying to do that, especially with the baby, you would wind up killing that person or that child. And so this is one of the genetic characteristics of what we call a natural elongated skull. Also, the suture lines. Here is the suture running across this way, but there is no sign of the sagittal suture whatsoever. And notice the curvature here, as if the two hemispheres are being represented, or the shaping was done by nature in order to have this dip inside of here. Also, the eye sockets are up to 50% larger than normal. And these bones in the back, these tiny bones here, are not in a normal human being. These are called Inca bones. They are found in the royal Inca people, but also clearly here in the Paracas as well. So that is another genetic characteristic, and that may in fact link the elongated skulls of Paracas, Peru, who died out 2,000 years ago, with the rise of the Inca culture.
So fascinating. So the elongated skull people may have died off. Maybe they're still around. Maybe they went back up in their ships if that's where they came from. But they may have interbred with humans to produce the royal line of the Incas. And in this video, Brian talks about the differences between the skull volume, the brain size of humans versus the elongated skull beings. There's a lot of road noise in the back, so bear with me.
The volume of the skull is 1,500 cubic centimeters, so 25% larger than the Inca skull, shown as the example of what normality is.
25% bigger. That is a smart fella. But how did the elongated skull beings interact with human beings? That is a fascinating question. In his remote viewing of Teotihuacan, Dick Allgaier, as part of a remote viewing by the Future Forecasting team, was seeing the elongated skull people as something akin to like priest kings or god kings of the peoples of the Teotihuacans. Yeah, this place right here where the pyramids to the sun and moon are. That's what Dick Allgaier was seeing, was that they were some sort of leaders of these people and they had fantastic abilities, which, you know, maybe some human beings elsewhere in the world tried to imitate by skull binding. They tried to get those abilities by looking like those beings, kind of a cargo cult kind of thing, right? So that's one example of how these beings may have interacted with human beings. According to this website, Atlas Obscura, originally head flattening was instituted to distinguish certain groups of people from others and to indicate the social status of individuals. In Europe, the practice was most popular with tribes that immigrated from the Caucasus region of Central Asia, like the Huns, Sarmatians, Avars, and the Alans. Indeed, that region is where the remains of the earliest suspected practitioners of artificial cranial deformation were discovered. So where did the elongated skull beings originate? Space, underground? We don't know. But it turns out the genetics point to a specific location on Earth where they came from. And it turns out it's the same place that skull binding in Europe, particularly France, originated. Very interesting. The most prevalent percentage of U2E and the H ones are, it is in between the Black and Caspian Seas. Now, the area between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea with the Caucasus Mountains, where the word Caucasian came from, is probably the country of Georgia. Now, Brian also says, he goes further, he says that he's identified the specific location as Crimea. But Crimea, interestingly, is not between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. So, you know, is it Crimea? Is it Georgia? Is it somewhere in there? Why does it matter? Why do I care? Well, I care because I am going to the country of Georgia. I'm going to spend a month in the country of Georgia coming up in a few months. Yeah, it's I'll just say that it's something related to the family, and I'll leave it at that for the moment, but I'll definitely tell you more about that later. But yeah, I'm going to be spending a month in Georgia, so it'd be nice to have some sleuthing to do while I was there. But if it's in Crimea, that may be harder for me to get to. So hopefully there will be something juicy in Georgia that I can find out while I am there. Maybe the secret to the mystery, or the answer to the mystery of the elongated skull beings, or at least the humans that interacted with them. Maybe they're found in Georgia. And you also have to wonder at the interactions between the Paracas elongated skull beings and the beings of Nazca. It's not that far, guys. It's like 111 miles or a 3.5 hour drive from Paracas to Nazca. Yeah, so did these little guys, did they have any interactions with the elongated skull beings? Because some of the Nazca mummies have elongated skulls like Montserrat. So could there be some sort of, hybridization between the two peoples? Is it just coincidence that they have elongated skulls? Because many beings, like the Greys, seem to have elongated skulls or big heads. So, maybe just a coincidence, but maybe not. They were in the same general part of the world during the same time frame. So what sort of interactions might they have had? Either way, the elongated skull people are fascinating. Where did they come from? How did they interact with the humans of the world? Were they some sort of hybrid created by the beings? As we've seen in Nazca, the beings seem to have experimented with various sorts of hybrids, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that humans are also some sort of hybrid project of somebody. There's no hard evidence that I've seen of that yet, but there's certainly suggestive evidence of that. And the beings have told people that, and sometimes they have different stories how that happened, though. As so often with information from the beings, you have to use your own discernment. They're not always 100% honest. So, who knows if we are the result of some sort of hybridization experiment. But could the elongated skull people have been something like that? Since they could interbreed with humans, they were obviously human or part human. So, who are they? Where do they come from? Did they indeed have fantastic abilities? If they were the leaders of the people of Teotihuacan, were they leaders in other places as well? What's the deal, guys? What is the deal? We need answers on the elongated skull people. Like I say, even before the Nazca beings came around, we had the elongated skulls of Paracas as hard physical evidence that the world is not what we thought it was. At least I didn't. Let me know what you're thinking about the elongated skull people in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give me a big thumbs up. I sure would appreciate it. Smash the like button and the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media, Facebook and Twitter, links below. Love to see you guys there. If you wanted to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, consider grabbing a t-shirt or a coffee mug in the merch store below, or by becoming a channel member, because channel members are rock stars. And I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you. Meanwhile, there's plenty of other videos on the channel, and I'll see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.